Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. We are continuing with the video set series on the types of political systems by talking about what a monarchy is and how it is played out in certain countries. This is important because we are also following up on the previous video about the historical political thinkers' insights on power. We are going to see how their insights work out here. A monarchy is a system of government where one person is the head of the state for life. Most, but not all, monarchies are hereditary, meaning that the crown passes from the monarch to a relative, usually one of their children. There are two main kinds of monarchy: absolute monarchy and constitutional monarchy. In an absolute monarchy, the monarch writes the laws and decides when they go into effect, but the laws do not apply to the monarch, appoints all of the high government officers, and controls all the resources of the state, such as natural resources like oil, gems, water, valuable minerals, human resources, and money. This is a lot of work for one person because you would have to know so much stuff, such as economics, military strategy, physical policy, etc. You would also need to know how to write laws and make people obey them. It is risky to give one person so much power. What if the monarch is lazy, selfish, old, sick, unable to decide what to do and ask, and does not know health policy, environmental policy, educational policy, and infrastructure policy? Very few people are qualified to carry this burden. That is why the historical thinkers spend so much time on the qualities a good ruler needs, but also emphasize how unlikely it is for one person to have all of those qualities. It is also why they told rulers to pick good deputies and listen to them. They said to fail to heed your loyal ministers when you are at fault, insisting on having your way will in time destroy your good reputation and make you a laughingstock of others. As a king, you could do whatever you wanted because the law did not apply to you. You got all the best food and houses. You never had to be cold or worry about rent. And if you did not care that much about your subjects, you could pretty much play all the time. But it's not so wonderful to be a regular person in a country where the king spends all his time playing instead of solving problems in the country. So, does that mean a monarch's power cannot be limited? No. This is where a constitutional monarchy comes in. A constitutional monarchy government system allows a monarch to still be the head of a state, but their power is limited. The country is governed by laws made by elected representatives. The monarch is just one mode in the network of institutions that make up the government. Every constitutional monarch is a little different. Some monarchs call the legislature into session, approve the laws before they go into effect, or appoint people to certain high offices. They might even be the head of the armed forces. Many constitutional monarchs have a ceremonial role. So, now that you know what a monarchy is and the two types of it, let's proceed into seeing how these are played out in specific countries. We will look at three countries: Saudi Arabia, Norway, and Thailand. For Saudi Arabia, it is one of the biggest and most influential absolute monarchs today. Modern Saudi Arabia began in 1902 when Abd al-Aziz ibn Saud conquered Riyadh with an army of his brothers, cousins, and in-laws. By 1925, he had defeated his rivals and set up a new monarchy. A Shura council made up of merchants, former rulers Abd al-Aziz had defeated, and the ulama, powerful religious authorities who interpreted religious law and chose new rulers, was formed to advise him, but he kept final control. Not everybody was on board with the new monarchy. Over time, the royal family got less and less interested in consulting with anyone else. Citizens occasionally asked for a written document that would lay down the basic rules of government, and the kings repeatedly promised one. In 1932, 1962, 1964, 1975, 1980, and 1982. But nobody ever came of the promises. After all, things were pretty good from where the royal family sat. However, things started to change in the early 1990s when there was external pressure to be stable. Globally, democracy movements were spreading after the Cold War, and inside Saudi Arabia, petitions called for change. In December 1990, 43 businessmen, technocrats, journalists, and liberal reformers published a petition calling for reform. They wanted a consultative council, equality under law, less corruption, women's rights, and press freedom consistent with Islam. But in February 1991, almost 200 of the most influential ulama, including the senior religious authority in Saudi Arabia, submitted their petition. They wanted to confirm Sharia as the guiding law, combat corruption, reform embassies, change foreign policy to follow Muslim values, distribute wealth more equally, and empower the army, religious institutions, and the judiciary. Essentially, factions formed between these groups of people. King Fahd eventually agreed to some of the demands. He announced the Basic Law of 1992, but it ultimately did not change much of anything. In fact, it kept nearly all power with the king. Article 5 stated that Saudi Arabia is a monarchy ruled only by Ibn Saud's descendants. People were confused about who wrote this and that regular citizens did not even get a say in picking the new king anymore. There was a consultative council to try to give a role to the people in the decision-making process. While it is true that the members of the consultative council come from religious, business, and academic backgrounds, the king chooses them. The king can fire them, too, whenever he wants. Not to mention that women were not included until 2013. The king also appoints judges. Article 44 stated that all authority, executive, legislative, judicial, belongs to the king. So, all the consultative council can do is make recommendations. The king can ignore them. All these new rules and institutions boil down to the king still does what he wants. The people respect tradition and the royal family, but they just want a little more say in decisions. Whoever sits at the table matters. If you control who sits at the table, you have a lot of power. Almost all the power and wealth still belongs to the royal family, including how laws and policies can be made. The Basic Law gave the Saudi people no way to hold their rulers accountable or make them change. It is hard to change anything in an absolute monarchy unless the monarch wants it to change. As we can see here, when the leader does things that go against the interests of their country, the citizens start resisting it and calls for reforms. But without a government component in place that forces the ruler to truly listen and change the way they are behaving as a government official, the ruler will just do whatever they want with little to no consequences. It makes it difficult to hold the ruler accountable. Let's proceed to Norway. Norway regained independence from Sweden in 1905. The Norwegians wrote a constitution and elected Håkon VII to be the first king of modern independent Norway. But 35 years later, it looked like the story was about to end. In World War II, the Nazis told Håkon they would stop invading if he dismissed his government and made Vidkun Quisling the ruler. Håkon refused. He did not want to give in to the threats and thought about staying and fighting. However, soon after, the royal family fled to England, and people took that as abandonment. Håkon could have accepted exile in Great Britain. Instead, he and the royal family worked tirelessly to support the Norwegian resistance. He refused over and over again to abdicate or renounce his throne. Regular Norwegians rallied around him and even adopted his royal emblem as their symbol. They made a song to rally around him. People felt like the king was still with them, which meant the Norway they loved was still there. On June 7, 1945, the royal family and the government in exile returned to Oslo, Norway, exactly 5 years after they were forced to flee. It was one of the biggest celebrations Norway ever had. For the rest of his life, Håkon was known as the people's king. Håkon's radio speeches encouraged people to stay united and hopeful. Even when people doubted the government, they trusted the king, which kept resistance strong and gave the exiled government legitimacy, even though the Nazis were working hard to sow distrust. As you can see here, a country's monarch does not mean its citizens will automatically dislike its ruler. What matters is making sure a ruler is looking out for its citizens, having faith in them, and giving them hope in keeping their country safe and staying strong. The king still had to build and maintain trust with his citizens, and that trust would be important in giving them hope that they would survive and win their country back. Let's look at Thailand. Even when monarchs do not make the laws or have power over life and death, monarchs can be leaders their people respect and need. Their leadership is not limited to intangibles like hope. Let's look at King Bhumibol and Queen Sirikit. Bhumibol was crowned in 1950 during a period of political upheaval. The king's power was limited by the constitution and the ongoing threat of a military coup. King Bhumibol and Queen Sirikit traveled to the poorest and least developed areas of Thailand, learning directly from their people about what they needed. The king and queen funded thousands of royals' development projects to improve health, sanitation, transportation, agriculture, education, and infrastructure. The people had a problem, and the king and queen fixed it, which could be a reason for some countries hanging on to their kings and queens. But a lot of countries have not. One of the things we have to pay attention to is how satisfied the citizens are with their country's leadership. If the leaders are truly listening to the citizens and enacting solutions, the citizens are more likely to keep their political system the way it is. If the leaders only follow their self-interests, then more citizens will feel unsatisfied and want change in their political system to bring in leaders that will help sustain and improve their country. Here are some takeaways from these examples. Our expectations of monarchies have changed over time. Originally, a monarch was the strongest person around, someone who was capable of protecting the people inside the territory they control for other strong people. Eventually, monarchs started believing that they owned all the land, people, and things inside their territory. It was all just property that came with being king or queen. Many religions taught that monarchs were chosen by their gods to rule over other people. As long as the monarch was upholding their responsibilities under divine law, there was no legitimate reason to deny their authority. Kings called themselves the fathers of their nations. Denying the authority of the king was equated with denying the authority of parents over children, denying divine authority, and denying the basic social order. Those are high stakes. But claiming a divine right or calling yourself father of the nation does not automatically make you a good leader or mean you have good ideas. Other people might have good ideas too, even if they do not have crowns. As time passed, people around the world started thinking that more people should be involved in making decisions that affect our daily lives. Some monarchs like Kaiser Wilhelm II, Hohenzollern of Prussia, never learned to share power gracefully. The king held his power by the grace of God, to whom alone he was responsible. He chose his path and only decided his actions from this point of view. Some, like King James I of England, did give up some of their power, and then some more and some more. For example, the parliament can pay off the king's debts in exchange for some concessions. Other monarchs, like Constantine II of Greece, were deposed by wars or other external crises. After the crisis was over, no one wanted them back. Monarchs told their people they were in charge because they were special in some way. They held on to power by staying at the top of the political pyramid. Eventually, the people at the bottom realized how easy it was to knock the monarch off their perch when they unite together and stand up against the monarch, not looking out for their country's best interests. In conclusion, we now know that simply having a monarchy will not automatically cause a country to fail. Simply having one person or two rule a country does not automatically mean a country will not succeed. The thing that matters the most on if a country with a monarchy succeeds or not is whether the ruler is listening to the citizens, cooperating with them, trusting them, and having faith in them. Throughout the examples I provided, a country with a ruler who addresses the needs of its citizens tends to do well as a country compared to a ruler who only follows their self-interests and citizens resist them. With resistance, citizens have less trust in their leaders and are excluded from the political process. Certain monarch leaders realize they need to incorporate some democratic principles in their leadership by rallying their citizens behind their efforts and ensuring they have productive lives by addressing their needs. A ruler is still accountable to their citizens and quality of life in their country, no matter how their government system functions. A country's condition is not solely dependent on one ruler, but rather dependent on everyone living in the country. We are now seeing that a ruler cannot do whatever they want. They have to make sure the people believe in their government and are satisfied with it, no matter what political system they live under. If not, then there is a risk of instability. So, it looks like there needs to be some sort of democracy in how a ruler governs their country. In the next video, we will talk about dictatorship and look at some countries that experience this. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and turn on the post notifications so you will be notified when I post my next video. I appreciate your support. Remember, you are powerful, you are capable, and you are the changemaker our society needs. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you soon.